I have the great pleasure of introducing Italy Simmons. Is it Simmons?
Yes.
Okay.
I asked you about your first name. I didn't ask you about the second. All right. Italy Simmons. She is from Barber Community Learning Center. Italy is a third grader and a student at Barber. She is an academic scholar, a positive leader, and as you'll all see in a moment, a fashionista. She has a friendly, cooperative demeanor and is always willing to assist her peers. She comes to school ready to learn and works productively to that end. Italy prides herself in passing the Reading Ohio Achievement Assessments in the fall with a score of 419. Wow. Her goal for the Spring Ohio Achievement Assessment will be to increase her score to reading to 450. In her spare time, she enjoys bowling and shopping at Justice. Italy, come on up.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Perfect. Now, you guys see what I mean, right? Come on.
Thank you.
Okay. Now, Italy, can you introduce who came with you today? Because you have quite a fan club.
Yes. The first person is my mom, Sherelle. The second person is my brother, Greg. The third person is my uncle, Dion. The fourth person is my nana, Betty. The fifth person is my uncle, Deontay. And the sixth person is my granny, Yolanda.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much
Is your
for coming.
principal
Is your
Oh,
principal here?
Oh yes, my principal, Miss Williams, and my LRC teacher, Miss Flynn.
Thank you so much for coming. I think she definitely holds the record for bringing the most supporters. So that speaks volumes that you guys came to support her, and thank you so much for coming. Now, I already told you that if you have bowling or shopping to go do, that you are free to go with your family. Because she's already done with her homework. She assured me she's already done all her homework. But thank you so much for coming.
We're super impressed by the village too. It blesses my heart to see all of you guys here supporting your niece, your sister, your auntie, your grandma. Thank you so much. I wish I had a village follow me around like that. You are really, really blessed.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you guys for inviting me.
Thank you for being here.
Hope it did work.
All right, now is the time for our community and school reflections. Where have you guys been in this school? Anything to share? Mr. James.
On Friday afternoon, I had the pleasure of going to the Cleveland Convention Center and listening to the Firestone High School Woodwind Choir. They were performing at the Ohio Music Educators Association. It was a wonderful program. Lee Gibson did a great job. And the students, of course. And actually, the program was printed in our duplicating department, which is one of the services that we provide to our schools. So.
And those are fancy programs. I know that that's one of these. I know that Dr. Williams and myself were there, as well as lots of the teachers for the Akron School of the Arts that went to support the students there. So that's really interesting. All right, Ms. Simba, I'm sorry. Mr. James jumped right in there.
Oh,
If there's a pause, he just jumps right in.
Had an opportunity to attend the NSBA advocacy conference in Washington, D.C. last week, along with my colleague, Bruce Alexander. I'm going to read what I wrote so I can stay on script because I know we can go really long. What I tried to phrase the whole mood in Washington around education. It was really about taking a vision and translating it into action. The theme was that you have to make it personal and being mission-driven, leading our children to excellence. Emphasis on the educated electorate is the core of our democracy, preserving futures of our country by making sure that our most valuable resource has the educational foundation as its mission, and that's critical. We had an opportunity to go to a number of workshops that were really preparing us to go up on Capitol Hill to meet with some of our representatives. But as part of some of the general sessions, there was a presentation by James Carville and Mary Matlin. If you guys have never seen them as a couple, they were quite entertaining. But their theme was to talk about what's really going on in Washington. It was very entertaining, and they really had a real uncanny ability to present very painful realities, things that would typically depress you in such an enjoyable way, cause you to really laugh. In lieu of crying, but they did a tremendous job, I think, helping to put things in perspective, and really there was enough blame, if you will, to share amongst the parties. We also had an opportunity to hear from the renowned journalist Gwen Eiffel, who just really had a message of empowering. She talked about how lazy people are about reporting and finding out information. They believe that news is whatever appears in your
newspaper?
No. Whatever.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
In your phone browser or in your iPad when you open it. So whatever that leading story is, we think that is news. She kind of went on to say that's why we believe and we rank the Hernandez case on the same level as we do when we're talking about the arms race nationally, that people aren't really delving to know deeply, so that we have to do a better job of helping them to do that. She said remind us the days of national news covering local boards are over. But in fact, that we have many tools at our disposal that we need to take advantage of to get our message of standing up for education out. You do a fine job of that on Facebook, Twitter. Those are the things that we have at our disposal, and that we need to take hold of that and start to do our own kind of messaging. We do a real good job. We really have. What's his name again? Mark Williams. Does he still work here? Yeah. Just does a phenomenal job of getting information out in chewable, bite-sized pieces. We had an opportunity to have breakfast with Senator Rob Portman and Senator Sherrod Brown. Talked a lot about different issues from ESEA to nutrition to early childhood education. Just ran the full gamut, but we really had a good sit-down opportunity with Congresswoman Marcia Fudge, who was very open to hearing any ideas that we have in terms of how we can support some of the challenges with ESEA. And really, she really challenged us to stop thinking about how do we get reauthorization of the act, but how do we tweak the act so that it is more in line with some of the things that are going on today. 2002 is a mark different from what things look like in 2015, and so she's really encouraging us to do that. She has a real heart for early childhood education in particular, and one for health and nutrition. And laughingly so, we know people are trying to move us into healthy eating. I think we're now on the brink of looking at sodium reduction. Yeah. I've had an opportunity to eat some food at some of the conferences of the New Wave food, and I don't think we're ready to remove salt. So I'm encouraging them if they can hold that in abeyance, we'd be a happy camper. But she's really ready to hear. She's looking for opportunities to do feeding programs for our students in our district in particular, but to see that happen, particularly around the summer months, how we partner in the community. And even if we could look at possibly us as a school district doing it. I had the privilege to kick off Black History Month in D.C., visited the African American Civil Wars Museum with my husband in tow. His great-great-grandfather, Kerry Borden, was in the Army, and so out of a group out of Pensacola, Florida. So we found his name on the wall. They gave us a certificate certifying him in the war, and so that was really, really nice. And finally, on Saturday, I went to the weather vane to see a raisin in the sun. So if you have not seen that before, this was, I mean, it was a packed house. It was a wonderful, wonderful performance. I don't know how long it's there, madam?
One more weekend.
One more weekend. If you haven't seen it, I would encourage you strongly, please, to go see that.
Wow, I didn't even pay her or give her college.
So, you know, and you know, okay, I'm back on script. But you know, just another jewel that we have. These young folks were phenomenal. And, you know, to give them a stage, we have the weather vane here. This is not a plug for the weather vane, but it's just a plug for the resources that we have to expose our young folks to. And I know that Lisa's heart is in trying to expose our young folks to. There was some young people there going to see the play. I brought my daughter along, and she was a happy camper as she came. I can't say it was easy getting her out of the house. So me and Dad, don't laugh, Ruth. But it was a wonderful performance. So. Thank you.
I just want to piggyback on what my colleague said about Washington, and she did an excellent job explaining to Congresswoman Fudge of what we want to do, especially in the child nutrition area. I mean, did an outstanding. I was happy that she was with me and I was on her team because she did an excellent job. And I also wanted to thank Ellen and who were the other two individuals who got information together for us to take.
Jackie Goines, Caroline L. Anderson, quite a few people from staff as well as child nutrition staff, so it was a team effort.
Okay. And I want to thank them because they gave us a lot of good information to share on Washington with Congresswoman Fudge, and she was very interested to see what we had to talk about, but she also stressed to us to kind of tweak it a little bit, and we're in the process of tweaking that so we can get it to her as well as the State Education Department to move towards some of the things that we want to hopefully move to here in Akron Public Schools School District. And so it was really good. The whole institute was just, this year was really, really outstanding. And so, I think we represented Akron in a good manner. And we had most school board members get there and they don't get a chance to talk to their congressman or woman that long, but we had about 40, probably would have had an hour if she wouldn't have had to go to vote because she was so into talking to us about education. So it was really, really good. And then the other thing I have is I went to Firestone High School and Bookville High School. They were talking about the new testing. And at both schools, they did a very good job of explaining it to parents and others in the community on how this new testing is going to roll out. I want to thank the staff who were there at both schools because they did an outstanding job. And thank the parents as well because they came to get an understanding of how this was going to work and how it may affect their kids. So I want to thank them as well.
Yeah, I just want to echo too, you know, the information that you gave us really liberated us when we got on the hill. Because sometimes you can get there and there are certain things they want you to say. But when we got your information, it was so in line with what we were thinking. We didn't have to walk lock, stock, and barrel. We go, no, that's not our district. And so we thank you for that because it was very, very helpful. Fair. And I felt free to share.
Thank you both for going and for representing us so well, and those that have put you ready. That's fantastic. And I can't believe you got that much time. That's amazing.
Oh, yeah.
That was gracious of her and wonderful of you.
Very much.
I have one more thing to add. I know that we're having long reflections here, but I had the pleasure of going to the Ellett High School gathering for purposes of incoming freshmen and understanding, and I think the ladies did a great job, and they actually, hats off to them, because they had to do it at 7 o'clock, I want to say it's 6 o'clock at Ellett, and then had to do it at 7:30 at Firestone on the same night. And I don't know when Bookville's was, but hats off to them for doing two identical programs back to back on I think it was a Monday night. In addition, I had the privilege of going to the Jazz Festival at Ellett High School on Saturday, February 7th, and I saw David James there. My wife and I really enjoyed it. The schools that had Bands there were Garfield High School. It was led by Leslie Madden as the director. Kenmore High School, led by Andrea Heinel. STEM High School by Jen Lewis. Litchfield Middle School by Andrew Schifano. And Miller South School for Visual and Performing Arts was led by Eric Landgreeder. Ellett CLC by Tim Zolniak. Ellett High School by Adam Grom. And hats off to Mr. Grom, because he also was the host school, and they did a lot of work in getting ready for that. And lastly, Firestone High School for the International Baccalaureate and Akron School for Fine Arts, led by Kate Ferguson. It was really an enjoyable evening. The kids did a wonderful job. You could tell they had practiced very, very hard. And there was even, I believe, a judging of how they did, and I wasn't able to stay for that, but hats off to them. They really did a nice job, and it was well done by everyone involved.
Go ahead, Tim.
I'm going to start with a plug. And if everybody will take note of what was passed out to us, you see our vocational program is called the Akron School for the Arts. And on March 20th, Friends of the Akron School for the Arts is having their annual fundraiser, gala, if you will. And the specific purpose of the raising of funds is for scholarships, to pay for clinicians, pay for artists in residence and things of that nature for that vocational program. So if anybody wants some information on that, please get in touch with me.
Is that one at the Civic again?
It's at Blue Jazz Plus this year. And it will end with the Acid Cats playing, who I believe all the members of the Acid Cats are graduates of Akron School for the Arts vocational program as well. So, and they're starting to make a nice name for themselves in the area anyway. So they're good. It's sort of a jazz fusion, if you will. Very good. A couple other things that I did over the last couple weeks. I did go to one of the freshman graduation seminars. I actually went to the one at the STEM, not STEM, but Akron Early College. The irony of it is, what I wanted to hear most was on the trades, and because there's none of our trade programs in that building, they skipped over that. But Barb Williams was there, so she brought me up to snuff on what was going on there, because the day before there was a discussion at the Business Advisory Council over that, and how the students we have who are going to go into our career tech side of things in the graduation, and anybody who went to one of those programs at our high schools over the last couple weeks, there will be a definite path for career tech. And instead of ACT, though, we still allow all of our students to take the ACT. There's something called Work Key that will actually be sort of the graduation test, if you will, for that track the students in. And one thing I thought was nice that I learned, and I think is true, somebody correct me if not, but I believe Project Lead the Way will be in the career tech program track. So it's not just wood shop, if you will, going back to when I was, my thought of career tech was 30 years ago, 35 years. A long time ago in high school, but anyways, very interesting information that we got from Barb Williams, both at the Business Advisory Council meeting and, like I said, when I was at Akron Early College for that discussion. One other thing that worth noting that came up at the Business Advisory Council meeting, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we're going to have to add 9 buses next year because of expansion of routes, and that's not just new buses, but that's additional buses for additional transportation.
I shared with the superintendent.
And we have to go into Stark County starting next year.
And treasurer, that due to some changes that are happening, as an example, we have done community stops for St. Augustine, and that is no longer allowed at an elementary level, so we will have to do an established route that will take, instead of 2 buses, we will have to go to 3. We now have enough students at St. Joseph's and Cuyahoga Falls that they will probably need a dedicated bus. And we certified our 50th non-APS school, which is the Falcon Academy in Field, which is less than 30 minutes for transportation 2 weeks ago. So just some changes coming forth that we wanted to share with the Business Advisory Council as we look at transportation for the 15-16 school year. Okay?
And maybe you can just address with the superintendent as persons are listening, why do we have that responsibility to do that?
State law says that the public school district in which students attend are required to transport them to whatever school they decide to attend. So as an example, if a student lives in Akron and decides not to attend an Akron public school but wants to go to a non-public or charter school, the law states the public school district will take them to that designated school, in this case, as long as it's 2 miles or more from their house and within 30 minutes. So I'll give you an example. The young student who lives in the Richmond area going to Falcon Academy, if you take the ride from Richmond down 91 to 224, out and up 43 north to Falcon Academy, it's 21 minutes one way and 23 minutes the other way. Therefore, as long as the law states as it is, we are required to provide that transportation. So we are looking at those carefully, but we now truly have a number of students asking for that transportation, and we are required to maintain it if at all possible. Payment in lieu is not something you should put them on a yellow bus first. An orthopedic bus if they require. You can use a service bus contract such as Peterman. You can do Metro. Payment in lieu is no longer an easy option. You have to put them on something. So we are meeting the mandate as required by the state. Does that answer your question, Reverend Walker?
Yes, it does, but I wanted to make sure you answer the others that were listening as well. But I
Sure.
appreciate the update for
You're
myself.
welcome. Okay.
Thanks, Deborah. So we have that expense to look forward to. And lastly, I just want to thank the Akron Council PTA for Founders Day, one again this year. And once again, it was a very nice night, which we get to recognize the people who really do things behind the scenes in Akron Public Schools. So thank you.
Yeah, Barb Williams, just want to echo some of what Tim was saying. Her ability to do a real good job explaining all the good stuff we have going on. But, you know, I was sharing that we just launched the Akron Waterways Renew, the pre-apprentice construction workforce program through the city on today. And there was a mention again about somehow connecting this work that will go on at least for the next 15 years to some of the career tracks that we currently have in our school system, which, you know, I think it would just be a phenomenal opportunity to see where vocation really meets real life, bona fide opportunities for our young folks to find work in our cities and stay in our city. But more importantly, I thought to see the number of folks, we have 52 people who are launching this startup class, but just to know the trajectory, the life change that could happen through this program, through them going through the program and finding opportunities to work and or get into an apprentice program, one of the local unions, will be phenomenal. Because connected to those folks who are in the program are children, or children who are in our district. And so when we can lift them a little higher, it's the reverberating waves for the children are really evident. So,
Yes, sir.
Just to piggyback on that one as well, I spoke with a person representing our career ed department about, if possible, if there's some way to have something that we could put in our pocket that would tell us where all of the career ed activities are, where they are located, what school, so that many times we're out in the community and someone says, do you have a cosmetology program or hospitality program? And I understand there's a difference between hospitality program and catering or food, restaurant management. So there are two different areas where those things are, so we could be, say, to the general public, these are things that we have. You can be involved in that. How can we? I know when I go get my hair cut, the young man is always asking, how can I get involved in Akron Public Schools? How can we get other young men, other young women involved in our Akron Public Schools to do things, if not volunteering, but to tie into our programs so that those students may be able to find employment or find a mentoring opportunity. So if it's possible for us to have something that we could have handy that we can look at and be able to explain to persons, because that's a missing piece in our arsenal that we have that would be a tremendous blessing
I
to our
actually needed
community.
it the other day too, so
Yeah.
that would be lovely.
Can I just mention one thing? In your folder, right, Veronica, there is a brochure from our last meeting, the Structural Policy Committee asked for that. There is a career ed brochure in there, but I have asked Barbara to put together a palm card, because that's what Reverend Walker wants, a short, tuck it in, you know, his suit, something smaller. So she is working on that, but I
Okay.
gave enough copies for board members that, in the Sims folder, that she can pass out.
Thank you. Okay.
Very good. Anything else? All right, thank you all very much. We don't have any requests to address the board this evening. We do have a communications and recognition, and I understand, Reverend Walker, you were going to introduce that for us
Yes.
tonight? Thank you.
Want to highlight our district focus number 1, presentation on high quality teaching and learning. As everyone on the board knows, this year is our first year for Ohio's new statewide test alignment, and we've talked about that some already, to Ohio's new content standards. We've been preparing for this day for the past 3 years with the help of Race to the Top grants. We have transitioned to new standards. We've purchased new curriculum across most of our core subject areas. We provided intensive professional development for our staff and have held informative sessions for our parents, as was already highlighted. Tonight we want to hear from Jackie Hoynes and Amy Kirsch from the Office of School Improvement on the latest information from ODE on the Ohio State test and on the strategies deployed by our faculty in these last weeks before students begin testing. And so we'll turn that over to Jackie and Amy now.
Madam President, members of the board, Mr. James, Mr. Pendleton, I'm Jackie Hoynes from the Office of School Improvement. Amy Kirsch. We're here tonight because testing, research, and evaluation fall inside our department. So, as you know, February 23rd, we begin taking the new state assessments, and in preparation for this huge shift, our Office of School Improvement testing area, we've done some reorganization, and Amy Kirsch is taking the lead with all the new state tests. Dr. Egley will still be doing the OGTs, the ACTs, third grade OAAs, as well as 50% of her job is on research and evaluation. We've also added Erin Markovic and John Sturmey to help us because this is an enormous task. As Reverend Walker said, assessment falls really neatly under focus area number 1, teaching and learning, but it also falls under focus areas 2 and 3. We have to make sure we have the right learning conditions so that our students can thrive academically. And also focus area 3, a big part of the assessments has been the collaboration and communication with parents so that they're prepared for these tests also. So tonight we have 2 learning targets for you. First, we want to make sure that there's an understanding of the new Ohio State test, and also take a few minutes to say what we've done to prepare staff, students, and families for these tests.
Good evening. So I just kind of want to start off by making sure that everybody has kind of this foundation around these new tests, the Ohio State test, or for short, OST. These are tests that were developed in collaboration with 2 different organizations. So you may have heard people refer to the test as the PARC test or the AIR test. Those are actually the 2 organizations that came together, PARC, a consortium of states, that came together, and AIR, using the American Institutes of Research through the Ohio Department of Education, that came together and created the assessments. Last year used those as a pilot and then have now rolled them out into our buildings. In fact, our test materials arrived just last week. So as we embark on our first time administering these tests, they're in our buildings and ready to take off. Like Reverend Walker mentioned in his introduction to this session, this isn't something that's brand new to us. We've known that it's coming for a long time. In fact, the preparation really began 3 years ago as we had new learning standards that were brought into our state, and those learning standards are now translating into what our students are expected to know on their testing. So those state tests are designed to do just that, to make sure that our students are mastering those learning standards that are being taught every single day in our classrooms. They're also talked a lot about, especially the PARCC test, about being college and career ready. And that doesn't mean that we're just looking at every single 4th grader or 5th grader to say, hey, are you college ready? It's really looking at each student, wherever they're at in their education, to make sure that students are ready to take the next step. So whether that means they're a 4th grader getting ready to move on to the 5th grade, or in fact, are they a 9th grader that's getting ready to explore more of those college and career readiness tracks. When the tests are described by the people that wrote the test, they do talk about them as being engaging tests that are certainly going to test our students' critical thinking and problem-solving skills. And it goes beyond just the problem-solving skills that one would need in order to answer a question on a test. These are really asking students to dig deep into their thinking and apply knowledge that they have into everyday situations. So many of the items that our students are going to see are going to do just that. They're going to be real-world problems, and they're going to have to apply skills and knowledge that they've learned in the classroom to be able to answer those questions. As far as the tests that are administered themselves, here's a listing of those. Primarily our students, anywhere from 4th grade through students in 9th grade, will be taking a reading test. At 9th grade, you're either taking an ELA 1, which is our traditional English 9th grade course, or an ELA 10. If you're a 9th grade student that maybe is taking an English 10th grade course as a 9th grader, you would take that ELA 2 test. For math, all of our students from 3rd grade through 8th grade will take a math test. And for students that are in 9th grade or students that are in 9th grade or 8th grade that are in Algebra 1 or Geometry, they would be taking a test. Our students in 4th and 6th grade will be taking a 4th or 6th grade Social Studies test. And then any student in 9th grade through 12th grade, if they are currently enrolled in an American Government or American History test, or course, will take a test in one of those subject areas. And finally, for science, our 5th graders and our 8th graders will take their grade level science test, and current 9th graders will take a physical science test.
Amy, before you move past this one, so for social studies, even if you've already passed the, because the current 11th graders, 11th, 12th graders would have already passed an OGT, will they still take the American Government History test if they've already passed an OGT?
They will. Okay. So all these tests really just apply to our 9th graders and lower, with the exception of any student that's currently enrolled in American Government or American History. They are required to take the OST. The ODE has always had kind of guidance or rule around students in American Government and American History that they had to take some kind of test. And that test then we would have to report back to the state so they knew how our students were doing in these 2 subject areas. We were lucky enough to have those, our semester exams and final exams count towards that requirement. But now that ODE has their new set of tests, the requirement is that the students would have to take those.
Now they don't have to pass.
Okay, that was the next step in the section. Thank you.
Yeah, that doesn't impact their graduation path.
Okay, it's just for reporting purposes at this point, for those particulars.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
So let's take a look at kind of what this is going to look like when it actually goes in front of our students. Because when we look here, it just looks like we've got 4 different tests that our students are taking. And they are 4 big tests, but in reality, each test is divided into 2 different parts. Part 1 is called the performance-based assessment, or PBA for short. And that's the test that we're getting ready to administer to our students starting on February 23rd. Then this part 2 of the test is called the end of year or EOY test. And that test will be administered to our students in mid-April to early May. Students take part 1, the PBA, and then part 2, the end of year. And then in the summertime, the calculations are done at the Ohio Department of Education, and students will get 1 composite score. So they won't get their results from the PBA and then take the end of year. They get their results all at the very end of the testing. On the performance-based assessment, this one is the assessment, or the part out of these two that may feel a little different, may have a different testing experience for each of the students. In the performance-based, students are going to be required to maybe read a series of passages or look at a whole bunch of information on a page or on the computer and asked to answer specific questions. Once they answer those questions, many cases they're going to be required to then provide an explanation of how they came about that particular response. So they're answering the question and then they're explaining their thought process behind it. And that's something that, you know, on our more traditional tests we've not had to have our students do. The end of the year is going to feel a little more familiar as far as the format for our students. This is the students maybe are still required to read a passage or 2 or 3 and answer some questions about it, but it's going to be more of a multiple choice, very short answer type of response that they'll be giving. And I have some examples in here that I'll show you in a second.
So what's the rationale for not giving results for the performance-based assessment until the end of the year?
What I can tell you is that the performance-based in the end of the year, that they're combining those results to give you an overall score so that you would know overall what is your level of proficiency. The reasoning behind them not giving us that score standing on its own, I'm not certain of that. I do know that
there are 2 distinct areas of education. I mean, this is the PBA requires some real critical, not that all of it does that. Mm-hmm. And so how do you know, I mean, how do we know how to best ready our children, though? I mean, if you get a 1 composite score, I mean, that just seems to...
I think probably ODE is thinking along the same lines that you are. They have plans in their timeline to develop some mid-year diagnostic tests that would replicate some of the performance-based and end-of-the-year items that we could administer like halfway through the year, or even in some cases they talked about doing it at the very beginning of the year, so that we could use that to help plan out, you know, what are the needs of some of our students.
So I have a 9th grader that's going to be stressed out already, and so this just seems like it's just...
Yeah.
And then to come up with another test to see what we need to do to get them ready for another test.
Right, that's just, I mean, I'm stressed out, just, okay. I mean, it's just...
Yeah, no, I agree.
I mean, it's one thing to get the answer right, and then have to go and explain to you. Hopefully I get the answer, explain it the way that you think I should explain it. You know, you got the right answer. I mean.
Yeah. So if we look at our English language arts test, what I wanted to do is to showcase the difference between the performance-based assessment items and then those end of year. You're going to notice on both performance-based and the end of year, students may have to read up to 5 different passages to be able to answer and then demonstrate their understanding in this content area. For the performance-based, here's students are doing a lot of writing. They've got short answer, extended essay responses. They're going to have to go back into the text and draw out specific pieces of evidence, be able to cite that evidence, synthesize material across several different texts in their explanations and in their write-ups. For the end of the year, they're still required to read multiple passages and answer a series of questions, but for the most part, those are short answer kind of comprehension questions and vocabulary questions. So that's English language arts. When we look at math, it's math, but they still have to do a lot of writing in the area of math. They're still going to be required to explain their thought process, specifically around the performance-based assessments. So they may have problems in front of them that they're asked to solve, and then they have to provide an explanation of how they went about solving that problem. For the end of the year, it's going to be more of your basic computation with some short answer. So that's how the performance-based versus the end of the year look. What I wanted to do was show you an example of an OAA, or Ohio Achievement Assessment item in reading, and then show you what a comparable one looks like in our PARCC testing. So on the OAA, a very standard type of question would read as it does here up on the board, where you're asked to choose one or two words, in this case, that are synonyms for the word he. And the students can look at the words and they choose the responses that they think are appropriate, and then they would bubble that in on their answer document. A comparable question to that on our PARCC test is that the students have read a pretty long reading passage, and after they get done reading that passage, there are a series of questions. Each of the questions are divided into two parts. So you have part A and part B. This is very typical for our PARCC ELA test. So the first part just asks you to reflect back on what you read around the word dictate in paragraph 23 and determine what the meaning is. So they're able to do that. Then they move into part B, where they're asked to consider which phrase helps the reader understand the meaning of the word dictate. Once they do that, then they need to explain their response. So again, this is a very typical type of reading or ELA PARCC assessment item. This one in particular is a sample item from grade level 5.
Oh.
You'll notice I didn't put math ones up here.
I'm smart. None of that sounds correct to me. What does it mean in word?
Right, and of course you don't have the reading passage in front of you to really be able to read it and understand what they're asking, but again, this is...
I mean, I would never think of any of those words that related to dictate. So I need to go back to, am I smarter than a 5th grader?
You would want to go back to that passage and read that paragraph 23. Okay. So here are the dates of our assessments. Akron Public Schools is given a window of time that we can administer our tests, and we have to then choose 10 consecutive school days to do our testing for our ELA and then our science, or ELA and math, and then science and social studies. So you may hear other districts talking about that they're starting their PARCC testing next week, because that's when the official ODE window opens. We've delayed our testing a little bit, so to give us a little bit more time, and so we'll be starting on February 23rd through March 6th for our PBA, and then science kind of folds, and social studies fold into that, where they begin on March 2nd and go through the 13th. And then looking towards the end of the year, you can see that we have our ELA math tests that begin in April, and then our science and social studies that take off on May 4th.
Are we using computers or paper?
We have 3 schools that will be doing the online version of the testing this year. So that's Ennis, CLC, STEM Middle School, and STEM High School. We've been working a lot with them, providing them a lot of hands-on support as they've been learning the online system, as well as our department learning it right along with them. And the rest of the buildings will be doing paper pencil for this year.
STEM Middle, STEM High, what's the other?
And Ennis, CLC.
That's what I was going to ask, was the sort of the technology related question, and where were we and who was going to use what. So, good question.
Does this testing disrupt the rest of the school day, or are they just taking these tests during a normal language arts and mathematics period as an example for the 10 day?
In most cases, the schools go to a different testing schedule for the 2-week window that we have here. Most buildings will elect to begin testing first thing in the morning, or after like homeroom, everybody gets settled. They'll test during the day. It's about anywhere from 75 to 90 minutes that the majority of our students will test on that day. There are certainly students that get extended time or other kind of accommodations that can allow them to take the test a little bit longer. But each test is divided into different units. So within each of these parts, there's different units. So primarily are going to test for 3 days in reading and then 2 days in math, 1 day science, 1 day social studies.
With all the testing that the kids will have to go through, what about the anxiety? Those kids have anxiety. I have anxiety already just listening to it. And I'm thinking, man, this is test. I'm shaking for a kid. Is there any way we're gonna be able to pinpoint some of those kids and help sometimes maybe get them relaxed if we can, so they can take the exam? Because this is a lot.
It is a lot, and we've done work with our school counselors. We've also worked with our school psychologists to make sure that they're aware of all the demands that are being placed on the students around that time. And certainly they're the professionals in the building to be able to help to alleviate some of that anxiety around students. I also think that assessments really become part of the culture of our buildings. And so even though these are really big tests and they sound kind of scary to us as adults, a lot of our students are very, very used to tests and using tests to help to determine what their needs are in the classroom and how to get help and support. So it is scary, but I think that a lot of our kids are getting kind of used to that culture that we've created.
I mean, but that looks remarkably different, this test, and the one they've had before. That's a remarkably different. So I'm not only concerned about the anxieties they have, but their parents to be able to support the way they need to. I know my kid has this thing about, not just my kid, her friends, they want to do well. You know what I mean? They can sense when they haven't. It just seems like, I know we have to do this, but this just seems kind of right but wrong. You know, so how do we, well, maybe this is not the question, but how do we help parents to help them? Is that in the next slide?
Yeah, we're going to kind of go into those different resources.
And I see the window here, February 23rd to March 6th, and overlapping in social science as well. And I think we kind of touched on it with one of the questions that Mr. Miller had, in that, you know, if you're taking your English language arts and math, those are only 2 periods out of a day. I mean, they're not testing the whole day, each of those days, correct? It's just a small chunk of those days?
Yes, for the most part, it's 75 to 90 minutes over 5 days is what their total amount of time for ELA and math is. That 10-day window includes any makeup testing that you might have to do.
And as far as the kids and their anxiety, and I agree with Mr. Alexander, and I've got a kid that's always very anxious about tests. Do you guys provide any kind of, hey, today we got, you know, test coming up February 23rd. I brought in some samples from last year so you guys can kind of see it and go through it.
Yep.
Oh, that's coming up?
Actually, we're going right now.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to conclude with this slide. And how are we getting everybody ready for these tests? Mr. Kelly and Mr. Black asked every principal to write, Mrs. Kelly, I said Mrs. Mrs. Kelly and Mr. Black asked everybody to write an action plan, how they're going to prepare the staff, the students, and the parents. So while each action plan is unique to the building, there's 3 themes that you can see through all of them. First of all, for the administration and the staff, they've had content-specific training on how they need to change their instruction, what the questions are going to look like. And the training's been for all teachers. So not just the 4 disciplines that are being tested, but for example, the career ed teachers have put up posters in their classroom with the 27 most common terms that are found in PARCC assessments. All the career ed teachers are using the technology, even though we're only using technology, the electronic, in 3 schools this year. We'll be doing it in all schools next year. So everybody in the building is thinking this is a team effort. This isn't just the 4 disciplines. So teachers have been trained. Students have been given practice tests. The 3 schools that are doing electronically have learned all the tools that they'll need to use to navigate through the tests. So the students are being prepared. The parent plan and most of the action plans have been on interim pickup night, where they have computers set up where the parents can actually take sample questions. And then finally, our website just has a lot of information that parents or students can go to and access practice materials. Any questions that?
I mean, that sounds nice, but I'm not sure if that, for parents, who have anxiety even themselves. It seems like there should be some other kind of resource for them. I mean, I didn't imagine it just seems like there should be something else. I don't know exactly what that something else is, but I mean.
And the challenge, I think, is you have to have parents that are really, they're really on top of it and they're engaged. I mean, even Aiden's teacher sent home additional websites that would be useful for us for the park, but I mean, you really have to take the time and be on top of that. And I know that that's a challenge for some of our parents, so I see where you're going, Veronica. I mean, it's a difficult, and I don't know how you tackle it, but I mean, I struggle and I'm on top of it. And to be a parent that's facing additional challenges on top of that, and then to be stressed out about this, and then to see that, their kids' scores come home so far from, where they were, and to see those recommended interventions, and then on top of, and here's some websites, and here's some, I don't know.
And you just have to continue to be diligent about that communication.
And I know it's not our fault, but I feel like we've almost become abusive. I mean, it's really...
Yeah. Because the questions are difficult.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, they're coming in to get the internal report, right? And then we're going to say, hey, want to take this test? I mean, how does that work? So that, for me, I'm going in and get the thing, and now when something, going down, you know what I mean?
Yeah, some of the schools had stations, actually, where parents went to meet with their teachers, then they went into a room and they all got to sit in the computer lab and just see. They didn't take a whole practice test, but they just tried to give them exposure like Amy did with you. I think all of us, the reality is, this is harder. This is more challenging. It's deeper thinking. This is going to be a tough year for us, for all the districts across the state. The state has been preparing us that if you were an excellent district before, you're going to go down 2 notches. That's the state is warning everybody that basically your rating, if you were an A, you're going to be a C. If you're a B, you may be a D, because of the level of rigor. So this is a new baseline, and I think we all have to sort of brace for that. Is that stressful? Yes. Can we get everybody through that? Yes. Is the state going to make adjustments so that we don't have as much testing? Yes, thankfully. All indication is that everyone knows this is too much, and the state is looking at making an adjustment. Dick Ross, the state superintendent, with guidance from an advisory that David serves on, that he brought one of our teachers from Betty Jane to talk about the amount of testing, and they've listened and made recommendations to our legislators to adjust. So I think the spirit's there to make changes, but we do have to brace ourselves and kind of just come together, support the kids through this, and we'll be fine. It's a new baseline. We'll keep making progress from sort of the new reality that we'll experience this summer. But we'll be all right. We'll all get through it together.
Just part 2 of my original question. So after the testing is done, is it a normal school day with just compressed periods then?
Yes, typically. Okay. It's just an adjusted day. Yeah. Just like we did with the OEA and OGT. That schedule is very similar.
Keep some normalcy.
Right.
Without tripping over my feet, of course, we have great faith in you. The whole idea when we're talking about what the state has already prepared us mentally to be looking for, I'm not sure if we communicated that to the outside world, because they're going to be calling me and say, did you see your report card again?
Yeah.
So, so what are we doing, I guess, to kind of run some interference there? And the other thing, I'm not as concerned about a parent really knowing how to take the test. I'm like, how can we help parents, because the rigor that's required, or some of the anxiety is going to be good. How do we get information to them in terms of how they support the kids at home?
Yeah.
Like, we tell them, we get these all calls, make sure your kid get lots of rest. But so when we see this stuff, that we don't, it's just like, how do we, it seems like there should be some psychology of how to support your kid for the prac.
Yeah, and we will certainly I've seen some buildings do that, but we'll do that at the district level with Mark Williamson's, just on being supportive and telling people it's all about the effort. It's
right, that
not
mean no washing dishes. I'm not saying that kind of support, but I'm saying, so when we see these things, and maybe they just kind of like freaking out or feeling a little more anxiety.
Well, thank you to Jackie and to
Thank
Amy.
you.
Yes, thank you.
I'm so glad my kids.
Thank you all for your diligence on this and for helping us to understand so that we can help explain because, and I know a lot of the board members went to those meetings around the city too to listen to hear it the way it was being rolled out to parents, and I think that that's really important.
Let me ask one more question. When we met, there was a point system, so you have to get 18 points, I think. So explain that, how that works again.
So the exams that you saw on the one chart that showed all the exams, the high school exams are the ones that go towards the 18 points. And we actually, our next presentation, not next month, but it'll probably be in 2 months, we'll do a session just for all of you because they're revising some of the policies a little bit more. So we'll have to come back and give you another update on those. But these are the tests, the ones that Jackie and Amy just talked about. These are the tests that go into the 18-point system that you kids will have to earn to be able to graduate.
So does the basic attendance remain the same? So you get so many points for an A?
Yes.
So that all remains pretty much the same?
Yes. The advanced, accelerated, proficient, basic, and limited are the points 1 through 5. And whatever you score on the test, so if you get a proficient score, you get 3 points, and that's what you start to accumulate towards graduation.
It's a lot to take in.
It is. And it takes, the national research is it takes 7 times to hear something before you actually understand it. So we'll keep the repetition in, but we have to think about that with parents too. It has to be 7 times. They have to hear something before it starts making sense.
I must have heard the chocolate cake thing only 6. But I'm working on that. Say it to women.
All right, thank you very much. The next part of our agenda is the approval of our meeting minutes from January 26, 2015.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and properly seconded. Any questions or concerns about those meeting minutes? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Lombardi?
Yes.
Mrs. Mansfield?
Yes.
Mr. Miller? Yes. Mrs. Sims?
Yes.
Reverend Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Alexander?
Yes.
Mr. Bravo?
Yes.
Superintendent's recommendation.
Madam President, I have before me for your consideration 38 personnel recommendations. These recommendations are in proper form and I move their approval.
So move.
Second.
Moved and properly seconded. I think our SharePoint is down.
Yeah, I was saying, well, like mine's not
Anybody
coming up.
needs paper, we have paper copies if you have questions or.
I refreshed by going to a different date and then going back to that one that came up.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I seconded.
Sorry, taking a second here. If you know that you have any questions on personnel, we'll wait for anybody there. Anybody have any questions or concerns? Are you ready, Brian? Or you want me to wait?
Go ahead.
We'll wait.
I've read it. Go ahead.
All right, hearing none, roll call, please.
Mrs. Mansfield?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes, abstaining from number 38.
Mrs. Sims?
Yes.
Reverend Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Alexander?
Yes, abstain from 34 and 35.
Mr. Bravo?
Yes, abstain from 36.
Mr. Lombardi?
Yes.
Next, Madam President, I have before me for your consideration 4 motions and 3 resolutions on the consent agenda. These recommendations are in proper form, and I move their approval.
So moved.
Second.
Those are properly seconded. Any questions about the consent agenda? Yes, Tim.
Quick question on the easement. It says temporary, but when I read the agreement, it looks like it's permanent. We could never build anything over and above where the...
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, it's temporary from the standpoint that they'll need temporary access to the property to make the separation between the sanitary and the between sewer systems. And so, but bottom line, there will be the parking lot that will be part of over it anyway, but they'll be allowed to come in and maintain it if necessary in the future.
Okay. And that's why we could never build anything over and above.
Yeah.
Can't get to it. Got it. Okay.
Anything that can't be taken out anyway.
Any other questions?
I meant to ask David about this earlier. Looking over the documentation, it just seemed to me, and perhaps Mr. Miller can shed some light on this, as far as liability insurance and who's covering what, it seemed to me that that we're holding the city harmless from virtually everything, and I'm wondering, I mean, the city's doing the work, their liability carrier is covering them. Are they self-insured? I mean, we entered into these kind of agreements with them before.
We have had many agreements, easements with the city for a variety of properties. When we did the expansion of Talmadge Avenue in front of North High School, we had an easement for that. City is self-insured, similar to Akron Public Schools. We have never had any issues with any of the easements or any of the projects that the city has done.
And is this, the contractor been selected yet, or they do it themselves?
The city does the contract selection.
Okay. And you're comfortable with it then?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mrs. Sims?
Yes.
Reverend Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Alexander?
Yes.
Mr. Bravo?
Yes.
Mr. Lombardi?
Yes.
Mrs. Mansfield?
Yes.
And finally, Madam President, I have before me for your consideration 16 business affairs recommendations. These recommendations are in proper form, and I move their approval.
So moved.
Second. Question on the, in each of these choirs on the ground, jazz, string festival, why are there different prices? $75 on one, $125, another, $150, another, and they're all judging, so what's the...
It'll depend on the length of the program. Like on Saturday evening, we had, jazz bands from a variety of schools. So it'll depend on the time commitment that, each of these judges have to adjudicate in the program.
Yes.
I'm just curious on 1 through 12, why those are even coming to us?
Actual contracts.
Because they're contracts.
Yes.
Okay.
It states that we should have a service contract, and the board shall approve it, and it should be part of the minutes for the board.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mrs. Sims?
Yes.
Reverend Walker?
Yeah.
Mr. Alexander?
Yes.
Mr. Bravo?
Yes.
Mr. Lombardi?
Yes.
Mrs. Mansfield?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Although I did judge the talent show, and I didn't remember being offered a service contract. Talk about it.
I think yours was a volunteer.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah.
Chocolate cake.
Oh, that's the 7th time. I'm cured.
I won't steal Mr. Pendleton's thunder about the budget, but I will say as part of our Ohio 8 group, we will be conducting conducting some advocacy visits in Columbus to get a better handle on what the budget bill is actually going to look like, and working with the leadership of the House and the Senate in that regards. The other issue is we have been working with Mr. Flesher on our enrollment, you know, in terms of the report that I gave at the last board meeting about some of the challenges we have. And so I hope to have another update report to the board as soon as our next meeting to talk about some of the options for our facility program moving forward. And also, I'm sure Mr. Pendleton will mention this, that we've started the process of working through our budget for next year. But of course, there's a big, I won't say cloud, but some uncertainty in terms of as the budget process moves through the legislature to actually determine what our budget's going to look finally as we move towards our 5-year plan.
As a president's report, I just was going to echo what the superintendent was talking about and just caution everyone to not take on face value what is proposed by the governor is not always what ends up coming down through the legislature. So, you know, this is a board that is thoughtful, and the superintendent and the treasurer are thoughtful as to how spending will happen and what spending will happen, but we have to wait until we have a final document. And right now, we have something that's been proposed, and if you look at what was proposed 2 years ago and what ended up getting voted in, sometimes they can be completely different things. I know we did have a few reporters who wanted to talk to us right away about some great windfall that we might have when you don't know what you're going to get. And it's kind of like counting on your Christmas presents before you've opened the package. You don't know what we're going to finally get when we get here. So just would caution everyone who read headlines to dig a little deeper on that. And that's really all I have to talk about tonight.
I started spending on
I did. And the only other thing I wanted to mention, I could bring this up in unfinished business, but as far as the rules and regulations of the board are concerned, I believe that we're going to pass that on to the policy committee to have them take a look at that before we go forward. So that committee is going to meet. So if you have some requests, or if you had sent me some things, I will be forwarding those to them to have them dig into that a little bit deeper to figure out and make a recommendation to the board on what changes need to be made going forward with that, so that we can, you know, use that committee as it's intended to help with that. Does anyone have any questions about it?
And we'll know when you guys are going to do that.
Yeah, I'm going to get with Rhonda and Dave to figure out when we can meet so we can start our process.
So I did not send you, but I do have thoughts on your last.
Great. It's one of those things where I'd like to have them take a look at digging into it deeper as a committee first and just see what we can come up with. But one last thing is you should expect an email from Mr. Alexander regarding possible retreats going forward into the year. There are a couple ideas that we have that the superintendent and Bruce and I have discussed so far that we want to put out to the board to take a look at. So expect those emails. And Patrick. I think that's it. Retreats going forward. So committee reports. We have a few things to discuss tonight. Oh, sorry, I just skipped over Mr. Ryan. Mr. Pendleton. We have a treasurer's report tonight, and I know that there's a lot to talk about.
Well, there's a lot to talk about, but we all know that student needs are infinite, right? So how do we provide those resources for our students is our biggest challenge. As we look at the state budget in this important time, I sent out an email to the board on Friday with some talking points. And I would just ask you, as you're in public, as you're attending public meetings, if you hear those kind of bullet points about how it impacts us, let me know. Let me know so that we can continue to have the discussion openly, so that the legislators, that those folks who are making those policy decisions, they know exactly how it's going to impact us. I think that's the role that we can play. is showing exactly the bottom line. So while the baseline to the state aid may increase, and it may increase by 10%, let's put it in perspective that we lost 32% of our federal revenues over the last 5 years. And so we'll need to add that kind of conversation to this larger global conversation that's taking place in the city. So I'll try not to barrage you too much with emails, but as I hear things that are written in papers, and try to highlight those wins and losses. We also heard about tangible. Don't forget we've got $5.6 million at risk there that could go away. So those things, like the superintendent said, are still going to work themselves through this process, but being at the table is the most important thing. I'm really impressed with us as a team because we seem to find ourselves to the table in a lot of different capacities, whether it's not through OASBO or Ohio 8 Council or through our professional organizations. That's where our voice should be heard. So I'll try to keep you posted as much as I hear.
So just 5 years ago, our federal law. But even with a 10% increase, that would still be something to keep about, wouldn't it?
I think we need to look at the net increase. When the state has a headline out of the governor's office that says we're going to increase state basic aid by 10%, that's only one small component of where we receive our revenues. We talked and we heard about transportation. One of the things that Ohio 8 is going to advocate for is funding for transportation. And you also heard that we're now transporting to our 50th non-Akron public school site. So if they fully fund that part of the model, that would be something to celebrate. So I'll track those for the board. I think what you hold me accountable for is what is our net impact? And as we get closer to that June timeline when the budget's finally made its impact on us, that's where it meets our budget and how it impacts our kids. It's really difficult this early in the process to declare a victory, to say we're going to get net these many more dollars, when this whole wealth and capacity, and I think I sent the email out article that Howard Fleeter did about local tax effort, that seems to be, folks are paying attention to that. Who's got the ability to pay? So it's far too early to know a net impact yet. I know I didn't answer your question. I know I didn't. But I think I just need to add kind of where we're at in the process and know that if we do get the net increase and it replaced the federal and state dollars that we lost over the last 5 years, and we're able to add value down to that student level, I think that's a celebration. We're not there yet.
I guess this is my quick, and then you can not answer me no more. I guess I'm trying to figure out why I'm using 5 years ago loss as my baseline and not looking at the increasing opportunities from, say, 2013-14 or 2013-14-15. Why
would we look at 5 years ago?
Yeah, why am I using that as my baseline?
We go back to 5 years and even a little bit before that. It's before the 2008 crisis hit. Both here with property values, and remember we've seen 9 years of declining property values here, but also remember what came after 2008. We had federal stimulus dollars. So we're kind of using that as the baseline. That's back when we had more revenue than what we have now. So that's kind of why I look back to that level. I want the most revenue that I can get acceptable to the board and to the community so that we can educate with as many resources for the kids as we need. And we're not back to those levels yet.
And the problem to get even there is the constant drain on other areas. Open enrollment. charter school, ed choice. You lay one thing out, we're getting this money. But if you're reading some reports we're getting from the papers and data we get from you, there's a tremendous amount of money that we're losing. So I'm sure at some juncture you're going to tell us this is how much they say we're going to gain, but this is what we're actually losing.
Correct.
So what's the bottom line?
The bottom line
so
is
that we can say, for us down the road, this is what we have to work with. Because we want to know what the bottom line is. Because we keep getting these requests that, you know, to us, it's a penalty. I don't know if that's the right word to use, but it's a penalty. We have to transport these children. We can't, I mean, we've attempted to get something done about it, and nothing's been done. So it's required of us.
Right.
So the more persons who get a little smart about it and say, okay, I live 2.4 miles away, I can get this free transportation to the school. I can also get some ed choice money that's gonna help me go to that school. I can get open enrollment to those places. So just looking at, I guess, the broader picture of the finances, it looks wonderful if we get those resources. But what is that when we're looking at what we lose and then decreasing in enrollment?
The pluses and minuses.
Right, the pluses and minuses. And looking at all that together and say, okay, now, but this is the bottom line that we actually have to work with for this next 5 years, whatever it might be, that we know we have, that we can begin the budget.
So leading up to May, when we're required to submit the 5-year forecast, is a really important time for us.
Right.
The full budget details may not be known by then, but we will do our best to estimate that at those pluses and minuses. And then
Do you want to introduce the finance committees?
I'll do a quick introduction and turn it over to our committee.
Okay.
We have been working in Finance Committee a number of meetings. We've got a few policies here, and I'll leave the purpose and then just be as a reference to you if you have questions. But on the investment, the use of credit cards and deposits, so these are all in response to either audit and management letter comments that we've received from the state audit, and or how do we make our business, almost a $500 million business, more nimble so that we can respond better to what purchases we need to make for students. So that'll turn it over to the...
And before we do, so in response to what we discussed at our board retreat, and in an effort to sort of put some explanation behind some of the policies before we pass them, just a little bit more, and do that brief introduction of the policy with a brief presentation on here's what it is and here's why. And then at the committee meeting, so this would be the first reading, and the committee meeting would be the second reading. So our next committee meeting for finance, that will serve as the second reading for these policies, where we can flesh them out a little more, answer any questions you might have if you have any. And then our next board meeting here would be the third reading for those policies. So.
There's certainly opportunity for more questions if need be.
Right.
I'm going to just do an overview for everybody's benefit here. I'm just going to go in order that we have them in our board packet. So I'm going to start looking at investment policy and what we're doing here. Really, and all this is really is bringing us, the board, up to snuff on our investment policy, because we're really not changing anything in the investment policy. It's the same, in essence, the same avenues for investment that we are looking to go down and going into were always available to us. As a school district, we are required to follow all the rules set out by the state of Ohio as far as what we can invest in and things of that nature. So this policy we're looking at here is just going into some detail on what we're doing, some more detail about the safety, if you will, and how the money is going to be invested, how it's going to be laddered, if you will. So we're not putting everything we have into one account right now, waiting for it to mature. there's always going to be cash flow coming in out of maturity and coming out available to us. At the same time, something's going back in, so we always have ample cash flow to run the business, if you will. So Brian just brought to the table some other ideas that we thought as a committee were good ideas because they're ideas that should bring more money into the school district in the form of investment income. So I don't know if anybody has questions at this point in time, or you want to wait till I go overview on everything. Interrupt me at any time for a question or a correction.
Or join us at the next.
Too. So once again, it's just, it's more of an education for us than anything else. I don't know that we've ever really looked at the investment policy, at least since I've been on the board. It sort of was on autopilot for 20 years, I believe, with Jack. So. The next policy we're bringing, this would be sort of a new policy, the use of credit cards. This is just an attempt to, I think, make paying bills a little easier for some people within the district. Might make record keeping a little easier. I know for my business, I charge everything. It's an easy way to get your records every month of what you spent. I don't know if that's the intent here. That's something I look at as a positive of using the credit cards. The one question I had on the credit card use that I'm satisfied with it that worried me is, if we have credit cards out, how can people use them for personal use? Well, credit card companies now have checks and balances on cards where if we're giving a card to somebody who drives one of our trucks all day long, that card can be designated for gasoline purchases and gasoline purchases only. So we're able to drill down with that kind of a safety net, if you will.
And if you'll recall, we already authorized, I think this board, except for with the exception of maybe Dave, already authorized credit cards. This is a revised policy to put in place to back that up. So we did that some time ago, maybe last year or year before. So
I really don't have anything more to offer on that one as far as information at this point. Once again,
Who has access to a credit card?
Superintendent, treasurer, and we have one other purchasing card in the treasurer's office. And it's a rebate card. So we pay large premium and large bills by using that credit card. So we, in a sense, get credit back or a rebate.
So it's just two people?
Correct.
Yeah, board members don't have individual credit cards from the treasurer's office that we can use for board activity. We have to go through the treasurer's office.
But I will add, as Mr. Miller talked about, 10 years ago or so, maybe not with board-owned credit cards or employee-owned credit cards, but in a lot of respects, school districts do a lot of direct from the school to an individual reimbursement. Sometimes it's an activity sponsor, sometimes it's in advance of spending money. So it's a team event. So we actually give them cash. We have a form that they fill out, they sign it, they sign for it. So the modern credit card, what we can do, and there's hundreds of codes that we can apply to it, we'd actually give them a credit card, requisition funds, say it can be used for gas and food to these dollar amounts. And it's a more safe and secure way of expending funds. So they've really come a long way. And those are the kind of things that we want to evaluate in our office. For technology purchases, we're spending so much money on technology. Wouldn't it be great if we could get some of those rebates back to us too? So those are the kind of things that we're looking at.
Seems a little different than I thought we were talking about. But.
No, I was looking at the future.
But that's not what
I honestly don't know who has credit cards.
Okay, so we're not talking about that stuff yet. We're just talking about the current. So there's 3 credit cards. 2 of them are with you and 1 is superintendent.
Correct.
Yeah, those are ones that were American Express, weren't they?
American Express, and we have 2 with First American.
And then the last one was deposit of public funds, cash collection points. And this is a result, partially a result of a letter from the auditor on timely deposits of money. They found in a couple instances of people holding checks, what they felt was too long of a time period.
Where it looked like we were holding a check, so we're required to deposit a check within 24 hours right now, according to our current policy. But if I wrote you a check on Friday, February 6th, gave it to you on the 9th, you deposited on the 10th, you deposited it within 24 hours of me giving it to you, but I dated it on the 6th, and now you've violated policy. So
there's not a place, there's not a place of receipt?
Well, and so this is something that Ryan wants to fix, where you can actually deposit it with the treasurer's office within that amount of time and then make the deposit, and you're not violating that policy then. So, and Ryan, feel free to jump in and explain that a little bit more if you want. But
yeah, I think under Mary Taylor's office at the time, they said 24 hours public funds have to be deposited, unless they're safe in the safekeeping of the treasurer's office, and then it gives you up to 3 days. That's why I had asked you to consider a dollar threshold, because I still believe that if an entity, a program sponsor, activity sponsor collects more than 1,000, I still think they should do their very best to deposit it within 24 hours. Outside of that, if there's some small receipts, then they have up to 3 days to deposit it. So it gives us some more flexibility, but we are charged with putting it in the treasurer's office safety. So it's kind of where it falls back to the state law in 24 hours.
And so we have the mechanism here to hold cash. I mean, a safe or some secure facility.
As we do in all of our facilities. And that's outlined in policy.
When you said all our facilities, you mean schools? Correct. We have safe place in all of our schools to secure cash.
Correct.
If you look at it, it's defined as a locked desk. I don't know, do we have safes in all of our schools?
Safes, locked desks, filing cabinets.
we could ask the public to plug their ears.
Well, actually, believe it or not, the sample policy from Neola says that a locked desk is appropriate. Because if you think about it, who collects funds on a small fundraiser? It's the activity sponsor. It's our teachers. So to do that, they have to go through training through the treasurer's office to do that. This is a very common thing. We don't like to broadcast that, obviously, because we don't want certain cash collection points.
Did you hear that?
No, we're not going to talk about where our cash collection points are. But how we safekeep those monies, that lies with me, and how we collect it. And we have an organization that's bonded that travels from building to building and picks up that cash. So we have all those places, just like any other big business does, to collect cash.
Two other items as well, not necessarily policy, but when we're talking finance committee, just a couple updates for board members here. A couple other discussions we're having right now. One is board member compensation. Lisa and I discussed that briefly. Right now, our policy, and this is Akron Public Schools policy, not State of Ohio policy, limits us to being paid for 50 meetings. With the change in our structure as far as committees, that might be problematic for the president because she is a member of all the committees. If she were to attend all the committee meetings plus all the board meetings, that would exceed 50 meetings in a year time period. So we're looking at changing that possibly for the board members as well. I think calculation is if we have one committee meeting a month, two board meetings a month, that still leaves one additional special meeting a month for each of the board members. So I don't know that 50 meetings a month for the rest of the board's problematic or not, but we are discussing that as far as the compensation. Also,
if the board president went to all the meetings, she would also lose her mind.
Yeah,
so
well.
there is that as well. And it's not always necessary for the president to be there, so whether we need to increase it or not, it should probably be an option though. So
yeah, well, I think it should be. I mean, you know, whether whoever the president, I think it should be an option. That way, you're not discouraged from coming, right. If you will. So once again, that's just in discussion right now. And then lastly, we're still in discussion about what the proper minimum cash balance for the school system should be. And for a couple different reasons, obviously, we want to make sure we have ample cash flow. And I actually think it sort of goes to investment policy as well. As a treasurer, you need to know how much cash minimum we have to have on hand every month as well. So when those investments are maturing, got to make sure we have enough each month in our bank as well, bank account. So.
Can we go back to,
go ahead.
Go back to meeting minutes, and you may not on the top of your head, but Sister Ruth should have it, but she probably doesn't either. What is the average, let's say for the last 3 years, as it relates to meetings? How many meetings have we had?
That's a good question, and maybe we'll try and pull that for our finance committee meeting discussion. We didn't look at that, but we did kind of ask, why was the cap put in place in the first place? I mean, what's the point of putting in a cap? It's our policy, it's not state law, has nothing to do with anything that we can find. So why was the cap put in place when we realized that the only person that's really possibly going to be impacted would be whoever's sitting in the president's chair. And if you want to know more information as to why we think it wouldn't really impact the rest of us, at the next finance committee meeting, I know we're going to discuss that, but we did try and come up with an alternative that would, where that would be the only case really where it's going to be an impact.
I mean, I can't imagine that we've ever, since I've been on the board, that we've ever even approached that 50 meeting threshold, even including specials and emergencies and retreats.
Interviews.
And interviews.
Yes.
Right, that's true.
So.
Well, where it goes till 9, it feels like 2 meetings.
But you only get paid for one.
Or 10.
Well, that's the rule we should change.
Very good. Thank you for all that information. So,
and thanks for being patient with us. That's the first time we're trying to report out as a committee on what's happening in the committee, so that when someone reads policy 2251 revised, something, 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 you know what that is, and you've heard it from the committee, just in case, it hasn't been something that you're really familiar with. So thanks for being patient.
So now we actually have to have a reading of those particular numbers.
Yes.
Legal and policy, please.
This is the first reading of the following policies. First, policy 6144 revised on investments. Policy 6423 revised on use of credit cards. Is it administrative guidelines 6423 revised on use of credit cards, and policy 6600 revised on deposit of public funds, cash collection points. That's the first reading.
We already heard from instructional policy and student achievement a little bit. Anything else from the document? Thank you all for all your work. Outside.
Is this the final reading on the curriculum cost?
All right. We already discussed a little of the unfinished business, which is the rules and regs that are going to go to policy. Any new business anyone had to bring up? All right, so pursuant to Ohio Revised Code Section 121.22G1 and G3, I would ask for a motion to go into executive session. That would be employment and G3 to consult with legal counsel.
So moved.
Don't agree. Don't agree.
Don't agree to what exactly?
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Reverend Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Alexander?
Yes.
Mr. Bradhouse?
Yes.
Mr. Lombardi?
Yes.
Mrs. Mansfield?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mrs. Sims?
Yes.
All right, we're going to try.